Well, hello, Happy New Year, and good morning and good afternoon to all the partners, and welcome to our January call. I'm really excited. We have a great lineup today, and so thank you all for joining and taking time out. And our agenda for today, I'm going to have a very brief welcome. I'm going to get through that very quickly because, like I said, we have some great content for you. So we have some folks from Microsoft who are just on the leading edge of all this content for our security and compliance update today. So we have Debraj Ghosh, and he's going to talk about ATP and also some threat intelligence updates. And we have Tina Ying with us, and she's going to talk about Compliance Manager, which just recently went to public preview. And Nate T is going to finish things up take us through some of those security and GDPR toolkit. So great resources for partners. And go ahead and ask your questions in the messages window, and we have a couple of moderators that will either answer that during the call, or if you don't hear an answer right away, just hang tight and we'll get to it on the live call at an appropriate time for a break. So here's our Modern Workplace resources. You found your way to the call, so that's awesome. So you know how to register for those. And also we have a Yammer community and a blog as well. So check out these vanity URLs and explore some of the content that we have and the other calls and the training materials. And you can go ahead and download these slides from that same Yammer group. And so I'll be posting these slides a little bit later on this afternoon. So take a look for those. And then just one announcement I want to make everybody aware of. So if you're a partner and you are perhaps working on your cloud productivity competency or just looking to either achieve the 346 or the 347 in exams, we have a Next Up exam camp. And what this is, it's a 5-week-long session. Think of it as a big group study where you'll be working with a group of people consuming that content, and there's going to be peers and experts to be able to kind of support you through that as you make your way through the content. And then on the exam day, there's a virtual exam cram, and then it's going to be followed by either you can go to an in-person event or an online proctor exam. So the goal is that everybody passes the test together, and if you miss it, there's also a voucher for a follow-up exam if you aren't able to pass that right away. So this is subsidized by Microsoft, so it's a pretty good value at $299. And you can sign up for this if you're interested at that vanity URL, aka.ms cloudprodcomp. And again, I'll be posting these slides after our call today. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get straight to our content. Debraj, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really fortunate to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me today. So with that, I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about the threat protection updates within Office 365. And of course, those updates are primarily in Advanced Threat Protection, which many of you probably are very familiar with at this point. And then some of the other updates are in Office 365 Threat Intelligence. As you can see, we're going to start off with Advanced Threat Protection. I'm going to take over as the presenter. Is that... and so we're going to start off with Advanced Threat Protection, and you can see that the two main updates are now ATP for SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business and Teams, and ATP Real-Time Reporting. So on the first piece, many of you who have been aware of ATP now for the last couple of years, you know that ATP is primarily, or at least when we launched it, it was primarily to protect email from zero-day attacks and sophisticated phishing campaigns. Now that same technology is being applied to additional workloads, and we just GA'd in December ATP for protecting SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Now, this is available for anyone with an ATP license. So essentially, there's no additional cost to this. There's no additional anything that anyone really needs to do. If you have an ATP license, as an admin, you'll actually see a radio button that pops up that says, hey, do you want to turn this on for these other workloads? And so now ATP is really a very holistic solution for protecting your Office 365 ecosystem. So now we're covering, of course, the email piece, which we've been doing for a few years now, And then earlier last year, we announced that ATP is also protecting Office clients. And then in December of this last year, ATP now has also expanded to SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. So we're pretty excited about that. And as you talk about ATP with your customers, the thing you really want to point out is that it's one of the few services that protects against these zero-day malwares or these sophisticated threats that we see in the threat landscape for the entire Office 365 ecosystem. It's a very powerful discussion topic, and it's something that should really help and resonate with the customers that you work with on a daily basis. So that's one of the big updates for ATP. Next, later this month and into early next month, you'll actually start seeing new reporting features that roll out for ATP. And so ATP, of course, already has some pretty powerful reporting features. We wanted to enhance that even further by giving more granular and more detailed information for customers. So you will start seeing these 3 new additional reports using this UI when you start seeing ATP reporting in the next few weeks to early next month. So we'll have a new malware report, we'll have a new phishing report, submissions, and then content malware. So malware is essentially where we look at the different malware families that are impacting a tenant, and we'll be able to show you all of that in the graph. Phish is essentially any email where we've identified it as a phish or there was a phish type link. So what we will be able to show you is the link, the domain that it came from, if the user clicked through, which users were impacted. All of that will be available in the phish report. Submissions, if many of you are using the Office Outlook client, you will see that in your Outlook, depending on whether you have it enabled or not, there's a report message button. That report message button essentially enables your end user to report a email message to Microsoft and flag it as malicious or as a potential phish or something that should have been in the junk mail folder. When they report that message, while that email gets sent to Microsoft, it also gets sent to the admin. So the admin can actually see those messages that were submitted to Microsoft using this submissions report. And then the content malware, and we'll have screenshots, and I'll show you some screenshots for all of these. The content malware is where we look at the malware that's not part of email, but it's actually the other expanded workloads. So for example, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, we'll be able to show you where we picked up the malware as well. So we'll be able to tell you what workload and a malware was flagged in. As I move through, you'll see that in that previous view, if you click on the subject in the message trace below, you'll actually be able to open up this additional window pane. In this pane, you'll actually have even further detailed information about that specific email. You'll also see that there's several different filtering options for these graphs. So you can filter by sender, recipient, sender domain, a variety of different things. And it gives you really a lot of flexibility and granularity into what you are looking for and how deep you can go with the threats that are seen in your tenant. So that's why the filtering function is so powerful. It can really let you peel back the layers of what you're looking for and identify specific things. This is the submissions report. So you can see that you actually can break it down by category. So in the report message button in the Office Outlook client, you'll actually see the options that you have are not junk, phish. And you can see that when you submit it, when the user submits it in one of these categories, it's reflected in this admin graph that they see. So basically, you're seeing all these messages that were submitted as phish because it's the green, and you actually see that we give you a view into who was the submitter, the subject of the email, and who sent it, and also the sender IP. So all of that is available, and it also gives you the submission type. So it breaks it down by what the threat was or what the malware was. Once again, if you click on the details, so in this case the subject, you'll actually be able to open up further details. You'll get a summary, and you'll get more details on that specific email. This final graph is actually the content malware. So now, as I had mentioned before, you actually can see which workload or the workloads where we caught malware that weren't assigned to email. So in this case, we're looking at The content malware, we actually see the message trace or the file trace, and we see that it identifies the workload, it gives you the file name, it tells you the detection technology that was used in order to flag it and capture it. Gives you the file size. It also lets you know who was the last user who modified that file. So for all this collaboration, all these collaboration workloads, we can now identify the malware, and also we report it for you in the back end. Now, if you click on the file name, you'll be able to open up another window pane. Within that window pane, you actually get a summary and all these additional details. And some of you may already be aware, if you actually look under advanced analysis, that will actually then give you the details of all the information of what we captured in the detonation. So when we did the detonation of the file, what were the indicators that we picked up that let us know that this is something that may be malicious and we should flag it. So all of that information is also available in the advanced analysis. So these are the ATP reports, and then to summarize the two main updates for ATP, as you sort of talk about ATP this early this quarter, are the new workloads that are protected by ATP, so SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and Teams, as well as these new reporting features that are rolling out in the next couple weeks to early next month. All right, so I'm going to shift gears and move over to threat intelligence. The biggest announcement for threat intelligence is the new attack simulator feature. I know many of the partners have already heard about it and probably have seen it demoed in a couple instances. Attack simulator is just that. It's essentially our way of allowing admins to simulate different types of attacks on their users so that they can actually pick up on the ways that a user behaves or reacts when they're being attacked. And that way, the admin can actually then determine what are the right policies, what are the right tools I need in order to protect my tenants, so that in the case of an attack, this is what I can expect, because I know how my users would behave when they're attacked, and so I have the right tools now in place to prevent them from being impacted. And so the attack simulator will show up underneath the Threat Explorer tab in the dashboard, so in the Security and Compliance dashboard. And the big announcement, I think I have it in a couple slides, but is that Attack Simulator will have a public preview beginning January 22nd. And on that day, we'll actually also have a blog published late next week, which will give you all the directions on how to get to the public preview and how to access it, and basically how you can utilize Attack Simulator. The other thing is basically anyone who has a threat intelligence license will immediately see Attack Simulator lighting up in their tenant, and they will have access to Attack Simulator and be able to check it out. And for those who obviously want to try the public preview, essentially all they would need to do is they need to sign up for a threat intelligence trial, and then once they start trialing threat intelligence, they'll also be able to have access to the Attack Simulator feature. So this is going to be in public preview starting January 22nd. When we originally launch Attack Simulator, there will be three types of attacks that you can simulate. There will be a spear phishing attack, there's the brute force password attack, and the password spray attack. So those are the three that we are initially launching in January. Eventually, when Attack Simulator GAs, and the GA date is around RSA, so sometime in April, maybe a little later than that, we should have somewhere on the order of 12 different types of simulations that you can run. But when we do the public preview, we're going to start off with these three. So a brief example, if you're looking at the phishing simulation, for example, we will be able to craft a phishing type email, and you can see that it's very realistic to what a normal phishing email may look like. There's even a picture there, there's some links. And this is basically the type of email that we will be able to generate that you will then send to specific users that you target within your tenant that you want to see how they would respond if it was in fact a real phishing campaign. So these are the types of emails. You can see that there's a few different kinds that we're showing. You actually can craft a few different types. And I believe we're also making this available in different languages. I'll have to double check that, but it's not just going to be in English when we do the the public preview. So you can see that it's a fairly authentic type of email that would simulate the phishing campaign. And the powerful thing about Attack Simulator sitting within Threat Intelligence is that it actually can leverage that telemetry from Threat Intelligence and the Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph, so that we are actually seeing the most, we are actually seeing phishing campaigns in real time and real phishing campaigns. So when we simulate these, they're going to be as realistic as possible. So it's a very powerful tool to have and to be able to leverage and sort of understand how your users will be able to behave or how they react when they are under attack, so that as an admin you can be more prepared and be ready to have the right policies and the right tools in place to protect your organization. And you can see from here, when we give you the report, we'll actually let you know like all the different things that were available and all the different indicators and how you can actually understand, hey, what are the things that really threw this person off? What are the things that I put in there that made it thrown this person off? So a lot of different information and very in-depth information is going to be available in the reporting. So as a summary, that's a new feature. Attack Simulator is a new feature within Office 365 Threat Intelligence. There's going to be a public preview that begins January 22nd. Any customer with Threat Intelligence will see the Attack Simulator. So the way to really have access to Attack Simulator is, of course, getting a Threat Intel license. And so either through a trial or actually if they already are consuming Threat Intelligence, they'll just see Attack Simulator. And we'll have a tech community blog with further details sometime next week. All right. I think with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Tina.
Fantastic. Thanks, Debraj. And just one quick question, and I'm trusting that when this comes out in a public preview that partners would be able to administer that on behalf of their customers, so it would be available in like the delegated admin permissions?
It should be, yes. And like I said, when I publish the tech community blog, we'll cover some of those questions, and we'll have basically all that information available.
Awesome. Thanks, Debraj. Appreciate that. Great updates.
Yep.
Tina?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Service Compliance. And I'd like to introduce Compliance Manager to you today. So we just had a public preview program launch in November last year. And so customers now they can start to use Compliance Manager on Service Trust Portal. And then this year in the spring, we will have a Compliance Manager GA. And the reason why we developed Compliance Manager is that we know there are a lot of pain points from our customers about achieving organizational compliance. We know that it's really hard for them to stay up to date to track all the regulatory changes. Because based on research, there are more than 200 updates every day from 750 regulatory bodies. So for compliance officer and privacy officer, it's a big burden every day for them to understand and to define a control internally in order to stay compliant. And we also know that organization might not have enough knowledge about how to define controls or how to implement those controls. So we heard that there are 65% of company rank design and implementation of internal process is one of the biggest GDPR hurdle they have because they don't have enough knowledge, and they also have they don't have in-house capability to help them to implement those controls. And some of the other pain points we heard is that there's lack of connection between compliance and technology. So for compliance and privacy officer, they know the policy really well, but then they might not know about the technology that can help them. While the IT person, they know about technology, but they might not understand the policy or regulations. So there's no connection or a lack of collaboration between these two teams. And it makes compliance process become very disjointed. And the last pain point that we heard from customers is that they spend a lot of time on creating reports. So more than 30% of the company spend more than 4 hours just to creating and amending reports. So it's really time consuming for them to collect evidence from different teams and list all the detail, record all the detail and create report for auditing. And so that's why we developed this new compliance solution called Compliance Manager that will help organizations to manage their compliance from one single platform. there are three key capabilities of Compliance Manager. The first one is ongoing risk assessment. So similar to Secure Score, which you might be familiar with, Compliance Score, when we have the product GA, we will also have a Compliance Score that help to reflect organization's compliance posture against the regulation or standard that matter to them, including GDPR, ISO 27001, ISO 27018, and NIST 853. And so the customer can see the compliance posture from a single dashboard here. And the second key capability is actionable insights. So we know that compliance becomes a shared responsibility when customers move their data to cloud. So they need to know how Microsoft implement controls to give them a compliance environment. And they also want to know about how they can improve their data protection capability. So that's why we provide all these details in Compliance Manager. We provide them all the implementation details, task plan details, task results from the Microsoft perspective, like how we implement those internal control internally as a data processor. And we also provide customer recommended action about how they can use Microsoft product to be able to be more compliant with the regulatory requirements. And the third key capability is simplify compliance. And this capability is that we help customers to have a better collaboration across teams. So we give them a control management tool so they can track, they can assign a control to a person in their organization. And then other than that, they can upload all the evidence they have into Compliance Manager and download richly detailed reports for audit and preparation. So I'll share with you some of the detailed demo after the slides. So Compliance Manager, one of the biggest value that we have is that we help customers to connect the Microsoft data protection solutions with the regulatory requirements that matter to them. So in the past, customers need to do their own research and learn the products by going to Office Security Compliance Center, to Azure Security Center, to Windows Defender Security Center, and other platforms. And now, because we developed the Compliance Manager, customer can just come to Compliance Manager and knowing that to be able to comply with ISO 27001, what are some of the tools they can use in all these platforms. And so now I'm gonna give you a brief product demo. So if you log into ServiceTrustMicrosoft.com, you can log in by using your Office user account or your AAD account now by coming to ServiceTrust.Microsoft.com and click on the Compliance Manager tab. You will be able to see this assessment dashboard. So for one assessment tile, it will present a product that the customer use and the regulation that matter to them. So they can easily see the control implementation progress they currently have for the controls that are managed by them and then for the control that are managed by Microsoft. And then customer can also add assessment onto this new dashboard by click on the Add Assessment button. And then they will be able to select the product. And because the product now is under public preview, it's not GA yet, so we only have Office 365 available. And when we have the product GA, we will have Azure, and Dynamics and Windows will come after. And so customer can choose the product, and then they click on Next. They will be able to choose the regulation that they want to observe. And they can choose either one or multiple regulations. So, for example, they can choose ISO 27018. They can also choose both ISO to create an ISO assessment tile. So now I choose the ISO 27018 and add to the dashboard. And then if I click on the GDPR assessment tile on the dashboard, I will come to this interface. And this assessment tile has three main sections. The first one is the in-scope cloud services. So we tell the customers about what are some of the services that is covered by this assessment tile, Office 365 GDPR. And the next section is Microsoft Managed Control. So if you click on Microsoft Managed Control to unfold this section, you will see many control family because we group a similar control into one control family. So it's easier for you to search to find a certain scenario you want to monitor on, and then you click on one of the control family, you can see all the controls in this control family. There are 16 controls in this control family, and for each controls, we give you what is the standard regulation article that is related to this control. What's the control requirements under description? And we also give you Microsoft implementation details and task plan details. So if you click on the read more at the bottom left, then you will be able to see the whole implementation details of this control. And then we also provide you the status of this control implementation, the task result, and the task date. So if the task result is not a past one, maybe there's a fail with low risk or fail with high risk, we also provide you details of management response about why it didn't pass the test, and then what are some of the risks that might be involved. So we want to make sure that we are very transparent about how Microsoft implement those controls and what are some of the risks involved, so that the organization could do a risk assessment on the controls that they are managed by Microsoft. And the next section is the custom managed control. And similar to Microsoft Managed Control, we provide customer about how to define the control for them and to let them know this control is related to a certain articles for GDPR. We give them the description, and not only for all these details, we also give them the customer actions they can take to implement this control. For example, for this IP0102, it's related to data subject request. So if a data subject asks an organization to give them all their personal data in their data system, then the customer will need to provide those data, the personal data, the sensitive data, to that data subject. And so if you click on the read more under the customer actions part, and you will see that the customer action that customer can take to implement these controls. So we give them the tool. For example, they need to start to classify the data within Office 365 by labeling their data. And if they click on the label, they will be able to find a supporting document with step-by-step guidance about how they can label their data within their assets. And the second step is that need to conduct content search to identify the personal data for that data subject. And we also give them some of the suggestions so they can design an internal business process or SOP, and to make sure that if there's any DSR in the future, they will be able to fulfill those data subject requests. And then so this is the really valuable part to help customer to connect the solution they already have or they're considering to purchase with the regulatory requirements that matter to them. And then not only we provide them the customer action, we also give them the tool. So if the customer click on the assign button, they will be able to assign this control to a colleague in their organization. So for example, I'm a compliance officer. I read all this article description. I know the customer action, and I want to assign this to the IT team to help me to implement the control. So I can select the IT person in my organization, select the priority, and then make a note and then send the email notification to Alan. And Alan is my IT person in the organization. He will receive an email notification. He will come to compliance manager, and he will see a tab with all the actions that are assigned to him, and he can go into and implement those controls. And once Alan implements a control, he will be able to input the implementation detail into compliance manager. He can click on the manage document under his name, the button that is under his name AD. He can upload all the evidence relevant to this control into compliance manager, and he can reassign back to compliance officer. And compliance officer can come in and check all the evidence, check the details, make the task plan, and then update the status of this control as implemented and the task result based on the task result that they conducted in their organization. And so once compliance officer complete all the control implementation, they will be able to come to the upper right of this section of this page to export all this detail into Excel report. And the Excel report will have all the details for Microsoft Managed Control and the Customer Managed Control and link to the evidence as well. So it will help them to better prepare for their internal or external auditing. So this is the compliance manager will help customer to meet the regulatory requirements by providing this end-to-end compliance services. We help them to define control, we give them tool, and we help them to collect evidence, and we help them to create a report for auditing. And so after the introduction, I will pass this to Nateen.
Thanks, Tina. We do have a couple of questions if you can stay on for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you for that content. We do have some questions around, I know that it's in a public preview right now, and so we have GDPR available and ISO, and we have a few different questions around other plans. So, for example, HIPAA and FedRAMP, PCI. Can you speak to the list that we would be targeting when we go to GA, like what would be available?
Yeah, sure. So we haven't announced yet. It's going to be under NDA, but we plan to add more regulation and standards for sure. And then some of the regulation that is on the roadmap is the NIST 853. So it's very similar to FedRAMP. It's the same control framework, and we will have that available for GA. And for HIPAA, we also have that on the roadmap, but then the time to deliver that control framework is still TBD. But we will keep adding those regulations and standards based on the feedback from the market.
Great, thank you. And then will Compliance Manager require any add-on license to Microsoft 365, or will it become by default to E3 or E5?
So it's going to be included in all the business and enterprise SKUs. So it's going to be included. It's like a additional value that customer can get from their current subscription. And for Compliance Manager now, it's more, for customer, it's more like a self-assessment. They still need to do a lot of the manual work, but we provide them a lot of information in Compliance Manager. So it's going to be for free now, but we will have more premium features coming up. And then we might have more monetization plans there. But now it's going to be included in all business and enterprise SKUs. And but for like China and German cloud, they won't be able to access to the product now because the product is designed for multi-tenant clouds.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that, and appreciate the content today. And I'm going to turn this over to Nateen and just encourage everybody. This is available for you now on Service Trust. Go check it out. You can try it yourself. And Nateen, over to you.
Sound great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Appreciate it.
And thank you, Tina, too. This seems like we have a lot of exciting new innovations around security and compliance for our partners. And I think, this is a really great time as you think about the ransomware, the security issue in the market. Partner are really key to help customers to drive a lot of security work. And that's something that I believe, by preparing your team to know about the latest and greatest before customer and be able to help them effectively, given that we have a lot of compliance and GDPR need coming up, that would be fantastic. And what I plan to cover in my section today is to really talk about what are we doing to help our partners, specifically for the toolkits that we produce. And really what we call these toolkits right now is the GTM Accelerator, right? It's really a collection of toolkits that we help design for our partners to enable and engage customer on the kind of the journey. And as you can see from the slide here, right, when they talk about what is GDPR, what is a security concern, how it will impact them, right, how Microsoft can help them through the partners, this is going to be a really good tool for you guys to use with the customer. And here's why, right? Because as you think about the end-to-end need from the customer, the GTM Accelerator that we produce here have tools, have the technical delivery guide, have the engagement guidance. We also have the on-site engagement overview. And also we come up with the customer presentation templates for you to use with customers. And as you think about all these assets, right, it will help you to have a smart and comprehensive conversation with customer, and knowing that, we need to enable partner to have the correct conversation. And the toolkit come in with the in-depth guidance to help you have the right dialogue with the customers. And at the end, we also have a variety of customer templates in PowerPoint, Word file, Excel for you to use to engage with customer when it comes down to security and compliance GDPR. So let's jump into a typical scenarios when we think about how partner can leverage GTM Accelerator here or a toolkit here. As you think about when we start to prepare for the customer engagement, right? You start to review our engagement delivery guide in document. We also have the engagement overview of how you should engage customer, and some of the toolkit we also have scope of work example for you to think about how can you incorporate existing services you have with this toolkit that we have, right? So as you become more familiar with all of these materials, then you can start to engage with customers by using our material to assess customer knowledge and gaps, and then have the right kickoff conversation. We have the workshop materials for you, as well as the closeout presentation to come up with the finding, and then how can you add services to help customers be more secure and comply with the specific regulation. And at the end, we want to make sure that customers become more compliant, they are more secure, and obviously, we want to drive more Microsoft 365 solution for our customers here. So let's go to specific tool. We have about 5 toolkits right now. And moving forward, we also plan to improve it over time and then make it more useful based on the partner feedback. And some of you may also have Microsoft Partner Development Manager. You can also think about using this as part of the customer engagement when you work with them. So first thing first, we have the Office 365 Security Assessment Partner Toolkit, and this has been quite a very popular tool in the past 1 year, because many of our customers ask for a partner who can help assess what are the security risks they are facing when they use Office 365. And really, the key thing we found was many customers actually do not turn on security functionality that we give them through to the Office 365. For example, right, the basic thing would be like multi-factor authentication, or if you have specific feature like EOP or ATP, these are kind of thing that we would love to have partner help to help customers, and that's why this specific toolkit is consists of 2-day engagement, right, helping you to assess customer security objective and then requirement, and then come up with a roadmap for a customer to really drive ongoing services for customer. And this is something that many customer and partner find useful. And customer also say that most of the time when partners or multiple vendors come in and talk to them about, they tend to scare customer about the stat and scary threat in the market. But it's always helpful, right, when partners or any vendor come in with a solution, with a multi-roadmap journey on how customer can be more prepared and be proactive in security. And that's why we find this kind of engagement pretty successful and helpful. Second one This is a brand new toolkit that we just introduced to the market recently. It's called Rapid Cyber Attack Assessment Workshop. Essentially, because of the ransomware in the market, right, we hear so many customers ask for, hey, how can we be more prepared? In fact, right before the holiday, I talked to one of the clients in the US, and that's the client actually, the office was shut down for like a week just because of the ransomware. And that's where, it would be good for us to be able to help customers, right? By coming in, perhaps do a 2-day engagement and really identify what is their gap and how you as a partner come in and help customer with more actionable works. And really, it's similar like, similarly like the Secure Score 1 or the Office 365 assessment workshop. We have a tool for you to run on the customer environment. We have customer presentation for you to drive the engagement and come back with a roadmap like what I had here on the screen. Basically, for the rapid cyber attack, we have categorized the work into the quick win within the next 30 days that you can help customers and what are the areas that are at risk for them. And then kind of medium-term journey on what they can do within the first 90 days and then 3 months or beyond. So based on our early learning with a couple partners when we engage with customer here, customer find it very useful and it helped to spark additional conversation. For example, one of the key things about ransomware is, whether customer have ransomware resistant database to back up all the information, right? And that's where partner can think about various options to help customer choose the right solution for their proactive security measurement here. Okay. Third one here is the Shadow IT Assessment Partner Toolkit, and specifically we are talking about Cloud Shadow IT Assessment. And as you know, these days many organizations have employees that bring their own device, that use their own cloud apps, and that cause concern to many organizations, especially at the IT department, on how can they control that the data that they the customer use will not kind of go out to the unauthorized application. And that's why our team created a 3-day assessment to help customers identify what is their cloud usage requirement, what are the gaps that they see, and what are the cloud applications that the customer should think about or be careful, right? And then create a prioritized actionable roadmap by the help from our Microsoft partners. And really the primary tool that we normally use here is the Microsoft Cloud App Security Trial. And you can see it's similar to other toolkits. We have a list of recommendation and presentation for you to use with the clients. And this has been one of the very popular tools, especially for our early EMS partners who just want to start using EMS capability and drive the value of our enterprise mobility security, which is really great one. Next one, because GDPR is coming up this May, right? Many customers actually have no idea what to do with it. I would say that most of the customer in the Europe, right, they are pretty much well aware about GDPR and how it could impact them. But many organizations in the US might not feel so sure about how it will impact them, what kind of work they should do with the GDPR, especially the multinational companies that have European data, right, in their organization. And that's where many customers appreciate when partners come in and be able to drive a dialogue on what are the gap, what is the maturity model that they are kind of facing, and how they can use Microsoft 365 solution to help them become GDPR compliant. Obviously, GDPR is not just a technology play, right? Customers are required to look at people and process changes in their organization, but technology is key component. to enable them to do their tasks better for GDPR. And that's why our team create GDPR detail assessment. It had been released since Microsoft Inspire, right? It helped you to ask the right question to the customer and then come back with the easy to understand presentation and roadmap. And this is something that I think many of you should have seen this, right? And we are trying to evolve this toolkit to link with the compliance manager. Because think about it, right? As we have gap and solution, to really have effective way of do ongoing assessment, compliance manager will be a natural next step for you to use with the customers. So Tina and I are working very closely to come up with the next version to align well between these two tools. Last but not least, we also have a brand new tool called GDPR Data Discovery Toolkit. The reason why we create this tool is because many partners and customers ask our team, right? Okay, great that we have GDPR detail assessment. It helps us to put the roadmap for customer and be able to enable partner to drive services on top of Microsoft 365. But to be able to effectively discover where data reside is really important, right? Because without knowing where data reside, in which SQL database, where and how, it's really hard for partner and customer to come up with concrete plan. And that's why our team create GDPR data discovery toolkits. And the end goal is to help partners, right, engage customer on how to find the right data, especially the data that have PI information or personal identifiable information that are relevant to the GDPR conversation here. So it's now live. It's pretty much very popular as well. We have, I would say, over 2,000 downloads at the moment, even though we just released less than 2 or 3 months here. So we hope that by showing you all these partner toolkits, or what we call GTM Accelerator, will help you drive a better dialogue with customers. So, of all of these great tools, you might have a question: how can I find out more information? How can I get it? How can I use it right now? We have all of these toolkits or GTM accelerators on this website, partners.office.com/security and compliance. You can scroll down to almost at the end of the page. We have all the assessment and toolkits lined up for you to download and start to have customer engagement right away. So hopefully this is helpful for you. And I think, if you have additional questions, I'm happy to stay on and talk to you more about any question that you have at all. So Michael, turn to you.
Thanks, Nate. Great stuff. So I had been giving partners the aka.ms/GDPR partners, and this would be a better resource for partners to go to.
Yeah, for GDPR related tools, definitely everything I mentioned about GDPR will be there for sure.
But the main link that has everything that you talked about is the partners.office.com/security and compliance.
That's correct.
So we did have just a couple of questions, and actually I was able to answer some in the thread, but this is kind of more of a general question, and maybe you can comment on it. And someone had asked that that they tell their clients that have employees that are covered under GDPR. Their comments are, so I'm assuming this is from the perspective of a U.S.-based company that has EU employees, and they're like wondering, how will the EU enforce that on a U.S.-based company? Maybe through a policy, or do you have any comments on any of that? I know it's kind of broad.
Yeah. Certainly. Obviously, with the regulation, it requires your legal team or partner legal team to interpret the regulation. But what you can pretty much see from the regulation here, right, when organizations have European data at all on the PII, and if you have European employees, you are impacted by the regulation, right? And per the policy there, you can see that the fine can go up to 4% of your global revenue or 20 million euros, which is greater, right? This kind of fine can put many organizations out of business. I'm not sure specifically how employees from partner or customer organization situation is, but it's always good for you to talk to your legal team and think about using some of these toolkits to assess in detail on how partners can help customers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
And Nate, I think if you advance it one slide, I think we had some resources that Tina had put up there around Compliance Manager. So once again, we're going to be posting these to our Yammer group, and so look for those a little bit later this afternoon to be able to get a list of all these so you can take advantage of that. And thank you again, AT and Tina and Debraj for the great content today. And I'm stunned we covered a lot of content in under an hour, so that's just fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of survey questions up here. And so Nate, if you can maybe just hang on. It looks like maybe there's one or two questions else coming in. But I'll go ahead and put up those surveys, and you can let us know how this presentation was received and also some feedback on what you'd like to see going forward.
Great.
Yeah, so I had put up a link, a URL that had the GDPR toolkits, but it didn't have the other toolkits, and so you want to go to the link that Nate had put up there just a minute ago, and maybe we could. It was partners.office.com, and what was it, Nate? Maybe we can get back to that as well.
Yeah, sounds good. It's partners.office.com/security and compliance.
All right, great, thank you.
And just to give you more information, not just the assessment toolkits that we have there, we also have marketing materials for partner to use with customers, playbook, training, and more detail there. So I encourage partner to look at more information on the website.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you everybody for attending, and just look for those survey questions, and appreciate everybody joining today and look forward to seeing you next month. Okay, it looks like my survey questions are in a different template, so I don't have them here, but feel free, you received an email and a reminder on this call. Feel free to go ahead and reply to that if you'd like to give me some feedback on this, and again, what you'd like to see in the future. So thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end this stream, and we're getting some positive feedback just in the comments window, so I do appreciate that.